Hi there, and welcome to the Jane Anderson Show podcast. Thank you for joining me. We've got a very, very special guest today. So to kick off, before we get into that interview, a few people have been asking me about what does this year look like, 2025. There's been some, if you've come off some of the events that I ran last year and I talked about some of the trends for 2025, we are in, really challenging, interesting, uncertain times at the moment. And so some of the things I've been talking a bit about is what are the trends that people are noticing? What are some of the things that you need to be thinking about in your own practice? And, really at the moment, those people who I see who are doing well, their real focus is on doing what they do well, controlling the controllables. Make sure you're managing the metrics that really matter. And by that, I mean things like your sales calls, doing your BD work, those types of things. The people who I'm finding are suffering are those people who were hoping that deals would get over the line. They're looking at things in their pipeline and going, oh, well, this client said they were going to go ahead with that, but things have changed. And so I really want to encourage you, if you are feeling a bit uncertain about the way things are working at the moment, clients still need your help. There's still people out there who are finding that they still need leadership development. They still need change management. Those things are never going away. What you need to do is make sure you're getting your basics right, control the controllables, managing metrics that matter. And the last one is making sure that you're proving your return on investment, that you are capturing data, that you're looking at transformational change, and that you're capturing information. This year with the clients I'm working with, we have a theme this year. This theme is all around ROI this year. And so my real focus is helping them going through collateral conversations with clients and being clear about that demonstrated return so that they're really clear that they're contributing to the organization and not really taking away from them. It's not invest in me, as you're investing in your business and you'll get a result from that investment. So if you're not asking yourself those questions at the moment, now would be a good time to do that. So our guest is a renowned expert on upward bullying. She's an executive coach, a confidant, and an advisor, speaker, and author on her upcoming book, Tranquil Leadership: 3 Steps to End Upward Bullying. She has over 30 years experience in leadership, HR, and industrial relations. She's a leading authority in workplace misconduct and inappropriate behaviour. She is passionate about raising awareness of the little known but pervasive issue of upward bullying, and she works tirelessly to educate leaders and organisations internationally on this really complex issue. She delivers tailored coaching programs, workshops, and advisory services to help leaders end the chaos and step into tranquility. She is a trusted go-to HR expert for media across Australia, regularly contributing to 3AW, 6PR, 9 News, news.com.au, and a whole bunch more. So please welcome Maureen Kyne. So welcome, Maureen. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
I'm so looking forward to catching up with you and having a bit of a discussion around everything that flies, really.
Maureen, you are so inspiring. I mean, you've been doing this work. You've had your own practice for some time. You've come out of corporate and gone this way. Are you happy to share a little bit about your history and your journey about how you got into running your own consulting and advisory type thought leadership practice?
It was something I never even thought about doing.
Right.
For
Okay.
fact. But it was a health challenge that changed that course. So 21 years ago, I had breast cancer.
Wow.
And during that time, through my treatment, the organisation I work for decided to make my role redundant.
Right.
And so I took the time out and, went through the treatment, got well, and then came down home, here to Shepparton, to the region, and thought, gee, I think I might move back home. And I remember my father saying, so what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I said, but I think I could set up a consultancy practice and help businesses, through all of the things that I've learned in my, sort of leadership roles.
Right.
And so that's how it started. But I suppose the thing is that I had parents who always run their own businesses as well.
Oh, okay.
So that was always, something that support, you were there supporting them,
Okay.
even when we were very young, we're supporting them in their businesses.
Right.
And you got to see, what it was like to actually run a business.
Right.
And sometimes the hardships that happen when you're running your own business as well.
Right.
So it wasn't something I went into lightly.
No.
But that's how I started my journey, and I just started helping businesses navigate their way through, strategic plans and people and culture, and it just grew from there.
Wow. So you had some sort of sense of that's interesting because you saw your parents who'd had their own business. So you weren't going in kind of blind. A lot of sometimes people who start their own practice go, "Oh, how hard can it be?" I'll leave my job and I'll be right. But you really had seen, you've grown up with having, a family in small business and
Mm.
really being able to go, okay, it was a really conscious choice for you because you could go either way. And so
Mm.
you had all these incredible skills, expertise, knowledge around strategy and the work you're kind of doing now. So you're happy to share a little bit about where your practice is now? What does it look like
Yeah,
now? The type of programs you do now?
it's actually evolved over the period of time. And I remember saying to my business partner, who I took on, sort of 17 years ago, that I thought
Right.
bullying would bring businesses to its knees.
Oh,
And
really?
so
Right.
then we started sort of working our way, sort of designing programs and events around that, and speaking and presenting, all throughout Australia on it.
Right.
And so therefore, then sort of as time sort of happened, and then unfortunately my business partner passed away, which was really quite difficult at the
Oh,
time.
that's tough.
But it sort of gave me, working with her gave me such insight,
Right.
from the compliance side of things
Okay.
around the impact, that it would have on businesses if they didn't get this right.
Right.
And so therefore it just started evolving. And then over a period of time, I then started to really start to identify all various types of bullying that was taking place within organisations. And one that started to stand out was, leaders being bullied by their team,
Right.
and the impact that that was having on people. So I started exploring that a lot more over the last 6 years, and have
Right.
expanded that a lot.
Right. So this is interesting. So it's not just about, because I think that's a perception, isn't it? That it's about how do I deal with my manager who's bullying me? But this is not the case. This is the other way around.
Correct.
And so the work you're doing now is around delivering training programs, is that right? For leaders in organizations and how to deal with this if you're dealing with it from a team member. That's interesting. Do you find some organizations might, I mean, that takes a pretty mature uh, decision maker to feel comfortable to say this is a problem that we're having and to bring you in. I
Mm.
think sometimes we see organizations that, we talk about things like stress management and, we go, oh, we have to reword things to make it palatable for organizations to roll out without admitting they've got a problem with this thing
Mm.
in their culture. So, but in this case, you've got upward bullying and they have been receptive to it. Yeah. Like they're like, yeah, that is a
It,
problem we've got.
it's it wasn't that easy to begin with. It was
Right.
really quite interesting when I was running some workshops for a client that now I've had for a period of time,
Hmm.
and I started talking to them about it, and the CEO said, "That doesn't happen here."
Right.
And it was interesting, and all of a sudden the head of production just said, "Hey, I want to pull you up there. It does happen. It
Right.
happens frequently." And so that was so that gave me even more courage to
Yeah.
really
Okay.
stick at it and have those conversations. And I think the other thing, though, is for me, it's about the types of questions that you're asking,
Right.
in that when you're sort of doing that pulse check to find out what's actually going on in the business.
Yep.
And all of a sudden people go, "Oh, that's happened to me." And I
Right.
think the thing is that when we're in a leadership role, what's coming out is people often think, I'm the leader, I'm the manager, so I should be able to manage this. People shouldn't be bullying me.
Mm,
And they often don't recognize the signs until it's well and truly escalated
right,
into a situation that it becomes a lot harder to manage.
right. Wow. And so this you've identified as sort of you've got a real sort of niche here, I think, with the message that you have around upward bullying. Um, and so they're buying it as training programs. I think you're also working on a book at the moment.
Correct.
Is that right?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. It's gone back to the editor with a few more new chapters. So,
Oh, really? Oh, good. There's
yeah,
more work to do. So
yes,
we've
yeah.
got a book coming. And so they're buying workshops. Are you doing public events as well, or just in-house, or
It's a range of ways that we're working together. So I'm doing one-on-ones
okay?
as
Yep, some
well.
coaching for leaders who
Correct,
need
correct.
the support. Okay.
Yeah, I'm coaching quite a few ex CEOs of
Okay.
organizations and globally. I
Right.
think this is the interesting thing is it's a global epidemic
Right.
that is actually happening. And we're changing, the way that policy is being directed, within organizations and how it's being addressed. But
Okay.
so I do one-on-ones. I include it in the Respect at Work workshops.
Right.
And then we not only talking to the leaders about it, but we're also talking to the employees.
Right.
And it's really interesting when you get the employees buy into it as well, because they go, oh, so perhaps I've actually been bullying my manager
Mm.
just as much. So it's a really great way to get a higher level of self-awareness
Right.
into the way that people are, participating, within the culture
Right.
in the organization.
Right.
And then also calling out so that those that are the key perpetrators, or I often call them the conductor,
Okay.
that's like having an orchestra because they don't do it on their own. They actually do it in a gang or a mob.
Right.
And and you do see cases where they also then manipulate their leaders to become
I
involved, or
see.
the board to become involved. So
Right.
it's really an intentional way to get rid of their leader and for them to
Right.
have that informal control.
Right. Wow. And you just touched on respect at work. There's some new legislation that's come around recently. Is that right?
Correct. So the Respect at Work legislation is in relation to sexual harassment. So there's been
Right.
quite a few new inclusions into that. So
Okay.
now we have sex discrimination that's been included, sexism, which is now called sex-based harassment,
Okay.
hostile work environment, and positive duty. So that's all the new inclusions that are now within the new Respect at Work laws. And so it's now not just inappropriate to sexually harass somebody, it's actually unlawful.
Right.
So it's a whole new way of for organisations to start thinking about what do they need to put in place to address, these particular behaviours. And because, as I said, it is unlawful, so the Australian Human Rights Commission and Fair Work can become quite involved within your organisation or your business. Um,
Wow. So there's two things kind of going on for your audience. One is the risk of what it costs them if they're not implementing this. Like if I'm a CEO and if I'm not addressing this in my organization, then we're potentially, as an employer, liable if this is going
Absolutely.
on. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Correct.
So
And I
there's
think the
a
interesting thing is that when we talk, like there's also the new psychological mental health regulations that are being put into place in relation to all of this. So
right,
the integration between respect at work, psychological, work health safety, and then fair work. You've got all of these heavies out there at the present moment,
yeah, wow,
saying that this is what you must do in relation to these new laws. And, workplaces really struggling to look at what's their prevention plan look like? What do they need to put in place?
right,
So they start to address all of these things to meet those new obligations.
right. Yeah, so they've got obligations they have to meet, so they have to do this. There's also well, it's good for business performance anyway. Um, so there's sort of the big stick, but you kind of go, oh, well, there is a carrot too here. Like if you can,
Yeah,
improve
absolutely.
this, you get better performance and all those sorts of things. So Maureen, what have you done? Like so you've got people who are probably actively looking for this type of help at the moment because they're being forced to, but there must be other things that you've done that are getting you visibility and people paying attention to what you're saying. What are some of the things that you've been doing to have people notice what you're talking
Well,
about?
yeah, I suppose the thing is that even just, in my own community, um, I instigated the setting up of a HR group for our region.
Right. Okay.
And so that means that we go to meetings monthly. So we're tabling these things on the table and
Oh,
talking
right.
about these things. So it's really about education. And I think
Yes.
that's my give back to my community that I'm
Yes.
involved in. Um, I'm on a couple of other different committees
Okay.
where I get asked to speak and
Okay.
talk about different topics and things like that. But the other area that I'm really heavily involved in is LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah. I noticed you're really getting a lot of engagement on there. Can you tell us a bit about how that's
Yeah,
working for you?
absolutely. It's one of my go-tos. So the first thing in the morning, that is my go-to for an hour, is
Right. For an
LinkedIn.
hour. Okay.
And so I personally respond to every message that comes through.
Okay.
And the reason that I do that, and I don't have my team do it, is that it actually helps me sort of gain that extra bit of insight, the conversation that's actually going on. So I'm
Yes.
owning the conversations and I'm owning, the responses and the thinking that's going around it. So it's giving me deeper, deeper insight into the
Yeah.
discussions.
Great.
And the discussions that are coming are extraordinary, from all over the world. And
Really.
so I'm coaching, two people while we go away on holidays, while we're overseas. And it's be fabulous to sort of be in person.
Right.
But I think the interesting thing about it is that the conversations that we've been having and the private messages I get on some of the posts are extraordinary.
Really.
So um, recently there was nearly 101. A couple of months before there was nearly 200 personal messages that have come through.
Wow.
And so I'm responding to every one of those. And so the team now captivate all of all of that information.
Okay.
And so that then we're making sure that we're tracking how we reply, to those potential clients going forward.
That's incredible, Maureen. For so many people, they sometimes feel like, oh, is LinkedIn really worth it? And, I get it's, we're dealing with people. It's labor intensive. It's not, that's pretty dedicated. And that's why I think you're obviously getting the engagement because you're writing the responses. This isn't AI. This isn't
No,
getting someone else to do your engagement
no.
for you. You're actually not only seeing that, that's great intel for you, as you said, for
Mm,
your workshops, your training, your speaking, your books.
mm,
Um, but I think people can pick up, if it's a human being and if it's really you
mm.
replying to those things. Do you think?
Absolutely. And I think even just that when somebody, and it's really interesting, when somebody likes a post, I go in at the next morning and automatically go and thank them for liking my
Oh, do
post.
you?
And
Okay.
then would they like to connect and follow me?
Right.
And just saying, have a fabulous day. And I get 50% of those come back
Isn't that right?
and connect. And then I always sort of say, what's piqued their interest?
Right. So you ask them.
I'm
Yeah.
asking them what, and that's
Okay.
then when the conversations come through,
Wow.
which is
Oh,
really
wow.
interesting.
Okay.
So, or if they share, then I go and then thank them for sharing. But I also then follow the people who are liking their posts and
Right.
then connect with them as well. So it's really, being really quite strategic about
Yeah.
reaching out and asking for those connections to follow and things like that as well.
That's really powerful, Maureen. Very, as you said, really strategic, really intentional. It's no wonder you're getting the results in there that you're getting. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Um, for those, Maureen, who are, those that listen to the podcast are those people who are probably a bit like you, where they've had that corporate journey and have had their practice for some time and now looking for, the growth. What are some of the challenges that you've had that have, held you back in your growth?
Those wretched shiny balls.
Oh, right. Distractions. Right.
Like you could sort of, I don't know how many rabbit holes I've gone down.
Oh, really?
So,
Right.
and I think that's the interesting, and I, I've become well known for handling a crisis. So, all of a sudden you sort of get a phone call to handle some crisis. So
Okay.
again, that takes you down another rabbit warren, and you've got to sort of drop everything to do that again.
Mm,
And like it's lovely to think that people, have that level of confidence that I can do it,
yes.
but it does take you down a lot of rabbit holes.
Right.
Or you think, oh, gee, why don't I add that? Oh, that'd be good. And so you get distracted sometimes by those shiny balls. And I think the key thing is that stay in your lane. So
Right.
decide what your lane is and stay in it.
Yeah. And what about some of the things? I love that advice to stay in your lane. No, and I think you've got that so tight now, Maureen. You can see it's really clean and clear. You've got
Mm.
your book coming, all those things will just tighten up that positioning for you. So, what do you think some of the things have been really key for your success and your longevity in this game?
Well, I think, Jane, um, I think the thing is that you can't do this on your own.
Mm,
And it doesn't matter where we go in life and whatever we do in life, we have to learn from someone. We need to have mentors, we need to have coaches.
mm,
And I think it's really important to sort of reach out and find those mentors. And having been in business over the 20 odd years now, is
mm,
that I have had different mentors at different times. Some have been absolutely brilliant, others have not been so brilliant.
mm.
But working with you has sort of taken me to another level where it's it's provided me with a deep insight, but it's also I think, as I said, it's given me a lot of structure, and I think that's the
Right.
important thing, is having structure behind you, having the right resources, the right backup support to be able to do that is absolutely essential. And I think
Yeah.
and it's outsourcing too. I think the key
Right.
thing is that even though we are in our own business, and I'm running my business now on my own, but
Mm,
I strategically have a team around me who do key components of my work. And I think that
right.
that's so important.
Yes.
And when you do that, it provides you freedom as well.
That's the game. That's the game. Freedom to do just the work you love to do,
Yeah,
help
absolutely.
the people you really love helping and do it the way you want to do it. Look, you're
Yeah.
going on holidays and you're meeting people in Europe while you're there.
Yeah, it's look, and this was my dream.
Right. Was it?
This was my
This is
dream,
what you
to be
wanted.
able to, marry the both together, have travel,
Yes.
and then work with people,
Yeah.
anywhere within the world.
Yeah. That's
Um,
amazing. You can see how much it lights you up, Maureen. You really do love your work and love the people you help, and you can see how much you're energized by it. It's great
yeah,
to see.
it's interesting. I've got an enormous following in Ireland.
Have you really?
It's just extraordinary. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and some professors of the universities have been sharing my work.
Wow.
So it's just it's fabulous. And yeah, it's just amazing to
Oh,
and I think then that's what LinkedIn did. LinkedIn opened up that opportunity, and
yes.
that following came from a post that we put up about 3.5 months ago,
Right.
and somebody in Ireland shared it. And then I then just went in heavy on that, and the connections from that is extraordinary, and the comments and all that is extraordinary.
Amazing, Maureen. You're just really leading the way with LinkedIn. I love seeing what you're doing in there. It's terrific. And I love how, just intentional. You're paying attention, like you're noticing what people are saying, you're noticing the comments, you're noticing the visibility. Like I think sometimes I was talking to someone the other day I said, "Oh, are you using LinkedIn as part of your outreach?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, but that doesn't work." And I said, "Well, how often are you using it?" And they went, "Oh, I don't know, every couple of weeks." I'm like, well, that's
Yeah.
not going to work.
Mm,
But every day you're on it. Like you are just so consistent and you know what you've got is what people were needing help with. Where that whole, I love that quote that Seth Godin says, "We're waiting for you to lead us," and you're leading. That's what they're
mm,
waiting for. And
mm,
the comments that are being picked up by legal publications,
mm,
professors of universities in other countries, like that you've got a hungry crowd and
mm.
you've got so much to offer. So Maureen, for someone who might be listening to this or watching on the video on YouTube or and thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Maureen's a rock star. I'm so not. Like, there's those sometimes or I've had their practice for a little while and maybe they go, I don't know, but can I really grow this? Would I, what's the benefit in that? I can keep going along, or maybe they're starting out in their practice and, going, oh, maybe, I don't know, I just stay plodding along. What advice would you have for people who are either thinking about starting their practice or have had their practice for a little while and might be thinking, oh, it's harder to get clients now. It's all too hard. What advice would you have for them that want to grow but might be struggling?
Well, I think the key thing is that what we are talking about there before is you can't do this on your own.
Mm,
And I think that's absolutely important to be able to reach out and have an advisor, have a
mm,
coach, have a mentor. I think that that's absolutely essential,
mm,
to find that person who's part of your tribe.
mm.
The other one is, I think, to in your own community, who's in your community,
Yeah, right.
and reach out to them as well. And like, and I think that what's really valuable is when your community support you as well.
Right.
And I think that's what I found too, is that that's where works come from as well. Just
Has it?
being part of my community and people saying, "Oh, look, I need to have a chat with you." So I'm
Right.
not selling, but I'm
No.
building trust
Yes.
in that
Well,
community.
you've also created positioning too with that, Maureen, like because you've not waited for someone else to set up that community. You've led it. Like you're
Hmm.
going, all right, well, I'll lead it. So you're leading almost a community of practice and experts, and what's that whole rising tides float all boats? You've positioned yourself at an even more of a leadership role by
Hmm.
hosting that
Hmm.
too. Yeah. So
And
that
it,
makes
and
sense.
it's
You get the referrals.
and it does. And I think that the interesting thing was too, one of the girls said in the meeting just recently, "Oh, look, I know we should be using you." She said, "But I've put in a few other people, who are competitors." And I said, that's the name of the game."
Right.
I said, we learn, from a whole range of people. So, you don't have to be, um, sort of use the word jealous.
Yeah, yeah. There's work for everybody.
And I think the thing is that I'm happy to learn, from whoever's around me, because I think it widens my perspective
Right.
and everything that's happening.
Yeah. Oh, Maureen, you are such an inspiration. I love that you have this mindset of that's a real orientation around we're doing this for the benefit of everybody,
Mm,
not this, oh, this is my thing. And,
yeah.
it's about leading the conversation, driving change for the better of everybody. And I think that spirit of generosity and the spirit of community, trying to make things better for everybody, really comes back to you and to be able to position you as a thought leader and to feel like, you can lead the conversation that way too. So,
Mm.
congratulations, Maureen. You're doing an awesome job. We'll be keeping an eye out for the book. For those, if they want to follow you or have you got a newsletter or do you want them to follow in your LinkedIn? Where would
If
you like them to go?
if they come to LinkedIn, absolutely, and there is a newsletter as well
Hmm.
that goes out on LinkedIn. But we've got regular posts going up every week, so I'd love to have them engaged in those posts as well because,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Oh, terrific. Well, we look forward to seeing the book come out, and we hopefully will get you back and hear more about what you're up to in future.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jane. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you.